Right now on Morning News Now, gobble hobble. This Thanksgiving, millions of Americans crowding planes, trains, and automobiles to make it in time for turkey.
Not a good time to travel, but I got to visit my family, so I'm excited.
But stormy weather could delay your big holiday feast. We're tracking the conditions and how they could affect your plans. And developing this morning, an FBI investigation now underway into a wave of threats against the incoming Trump administration. Now, several of the president-elect's cabinet picks saying they were targeted. We'll bring you the latest. Plus, 'tis the season to spend. This morning, holiday shoppers getting ready for those Black Friday sales in what's looking like the busiest holiday shopping season maybe ever. We'll take a look at the biggest and best markdowns. And it's a Turkey Day tradition right here in New York City. We'll take you outside where the rain will not stop this year's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Good morning and happy Thanksgiving. I'm Stephen Romo in for Joe and Savannah today. And thank you for taking time during your holiday to tune in here. Let's start this morning with the potentially dicey travel conditions people could face across the U.S. today. Experts say it should be relatively quiet in terms of traffic, but forecasters predict a winter storm could drop up to 6 inches of snow across parts of New England. This could create icy, wet roads on multiple major interstates. Out west, an Arctic outbreak could threaten whiteout driving conditions for parts of Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah. Experts warn to be extra careful, especially as temperatures continue to drop over the weekend. We have travel expert Mark Elwood here with some tips to make your holiday travel as smooth as possible, and meteorologist Angie Lastman standing by with the latest forecast. But we start with NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin, who is live in Dix Hills on New York's Long Island. Aaron, good morning. How are things looking?
Hey, Stephen, good morning and happy Thanksgiving. With all this wet weather here in the Northeast, authorities are urging folks to be extra careful out there on the roads, although experts say Thanksgiving Day is actually the best day of this busy holiday travel period to drive. Meanwhile, this morning, authorities say they're investigating how a stowaway flew from New York City all the way to France.
This morning, the Thanksgiving travel crush is on, with nearly 80 million people hitting the road, air, and rail. It comes amid a major security breach at New York's JFK Airport.
They've directed us to keep everyone on the airplane until we sort out the extra passenger that's on the plane.
A stowaway managed to get through the airport security screening process without a ticket, boarding a Delta flight from New York to Paris, according to the TSA. She was not discovered until shortly before the plane landed.
There were no empty seats on the flight, so the assumption is that she was hiding in one of the lavatories during takeoff.
The TSA says it expects to screen a record 18.3 million travelers from Tuesday through Monday, about 6% more than last year.
I honestly should not have made my flight.
Winter weather posing challenges in the air and on the road. Denver leading the country in flight delays for much of the day, and Newark passengers experiencing 95-minute delays amid an ongoing shortage of air traffic controllers. But despite long TSA lines, most flights on time for most of the country. And with most Thanksgiving travelers hitting the road this week, dangerous conditions from an Arctic outbreak causing headaches in the center of the country. Whiteout conditions on highways in Wyoming and snow in the mountains of Colorado.
We've definitely seen a lot of stuck cars and cars off the side of the road.
Meanwhile, back to that stowaway incident this morning, Delta Airlines releasing a statement to NBC News saying they are investigating what happened there, adding that, quote, nothing is of greater importance than matters of safety and security. Now, in terms of travel, with what remains of this busy holiday stretch, experts say the busiest travel day is expected to be on Sunday, with a whopping 3 million passengers expected to go through TSA checkpoints on Sunday, Stephen.
Well, hopefully all of this turkey will be worth it. Aaron McLaughlin, thank you so much. Well, we are looking at a cold and rainy Turkey Day for the Northeast and quite the chill setting in from the upper Midwest to the Southeast. Here with more on that is NBC meteorologist Angie Lastman with your holiday forecast. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, Stephen. We, of course, have the rain and the snow that we've been waiting for across the east here, and that has arrived into the overnight hours, and it's really causing a mess for folks trying to get out and make those Turkey Day events and plans and get on the roads. Boston to New York down to Washington, D.C., that's where the rain is. Notice the interior areas of New England, though, that's where the snow is. As we get through the second half of the day, a lot of that is going to work out from New York to Washington, D.C. Even Boston, you'll start to see things wrapping up as the day comes to an end. But notice the snow sticks around into the evening hours. We're still going to be looking at likely the delayed travel, especially along I-95 and any of those outdoor activities like perhaps the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Still going to be dealing with the rain for at least the first half of the day. I don't think in places like New York City you'll see that rain come to an end until maybe mid-afternoon. So all of this being said, that means that it's going to be a slow go on the roads and potentially in the air in some spots. This is where the trouble spots are when it comes to the travel and just outdoor plans in general. But notice the rest of the country, essentially dry everywhere else. We've got San Francisco expected with mostly sunny conditions, mid-30s in Chicago, so chilly, but dry skies and even bright conditions there. Albuquerque ending up in the low 50s along with Little Rock. So most of us are going to be pretty good. We'll see the cold air settling in. But again, it's things like I-95, I-90, I-70, parts of I-20 that could see some rain and potentially snow in some of those spots that'll likely make it a little more difficult for you to get where you're going. And then after the holiday, post-holiday fun, you're likely looking at a mainly quiet country from coast to coast for your Friday. The only areas I want you to really pay close attention to as far as delays for airports and the roads, that's going to be across parts of the Great Lakes where we'll see that lake effect snow start to ramp up. What happens is the system that's bringing us the rain right now, that moves out, but cold winds are left behind. So that's really going to turn on the snow machine, especially downwind of those lakes. So that means delays likely in places like Detroit, Chicago could see some potential, but everywhere else, Boston to Atlanta, down to Miami, out west towards Los Angeles, you will likely not see any air delays as far as your weather is concerned. On the roads, similar stories, and that kind of is that repeat performance that we see for Saturday. Notice the snow piling up. We'll have substantial amounts of snow there. The only other thing that will be a big change is we'll start to get really chilly temperatures. December comes in hot with temperatures into the teens in places like Minneapolis as we finish out our weekend. That cold is going to continue. We'll see it as far south as places like Atlanta as we top out on Sunday just into the mid-50s. So chilly indeed. Lake effect snow still ongoing. But of course, it's all about today with that Thanksgiving Day parade. And unfortunately, not the news that you want to hear if you're standing out on the parade route. But we've got that steady rain that will likely be in play. The one good news, winds aren't going to be all that impressive for the time frame of the parade. So 5 to 10 miles per hour, still okay for getting those floats up. It's just kind of the rain that really puts a damper on things with those temperatures in the mid to upper 40s. Big picture look for the winter alerts across the Northeast and New England, really. That's where, Stephen, we're going to be looking at the potential of a couple feet of snow to pile up by the time we get through the weekend.
Well, those crowds outside of 30 Rock, Angie, they are undeterred by this rain.
They sure are. And they've been out there since 3 o'clock in the morning, so they are seeing those floats go by for sure.
Naively, I thought maybe fewer people. No, it is packed.
You were going to try to sneak in there, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a challenge, let's say that. Thanks for that update, Angie. We appreciate it. Well, whether you are staying inside, hopefully away from the rain or snow, or basking in some warmer temperatures somewhere, a lot of us are probably thinking about what or maybe how much we're going to eat today. What you're most likely not thinking about at the moment anyway is that return trip home. But with it being a record-breaking year for Thanksgiving travel, a little pre-planning could help minimize stress for that post-holiday journey. Travel expert Mark Elwood is here to help us with that. Mark, good morning. Thanks for taking some time out of your holiday to be in here with us. And despite a much higher number of people driving to their holiday destinations, the risk for trouble for travel is really a lot higher when you have to go through an airport. So what should people do if their flight home maybe gets delayed or even canceled?
Remember, the Department of Transportation very kindly has put together an airline services dashboard. So if you go to transportation.gov, you'll be able to see exactly what each airline will give you if there are problems. Remember, weather is usually an exception that's carved out, so you have fewer rights if it's not the airline's fault. What I would always encourage you to do if there are problems is call overseas. remember, the local phone numbers will be really busy because in America, this is a holiday. I grew up in Britain. It's just a Thursday in November in Britain. So call that number because it's not a busy time to call. Most of the airlines will have international numbers you can call, and I guarantee it'll be much quicker than that poor person domestically who's also wishing they weren't working the holiday.
What a great hack. I got to remember that one. And as we mentioned, a lot of people are going to be driving. So what times should they avoid hitting the road when they try to get home? I've heard a bit of a range here. What's your take?
Yeah. Look, you're a morning person, or you have to make yourself a morning person. To avoid those traffic jams, you've got to get up early. Get up early on Monday, and you'll do brilliantly. Get up early on Sunday, you'll do brilliantly. If you have a lie-in either day, you're really going to hit a lot of traffic. So honestly, get a nice early night on Saturday, crack a dawn on Sunday, or crack a dawn on Monday. You're going to get home much, much more quickly.
Well, Mark, some people are skipping grandma's house this year, and they are going abroad for Thanksgiving, especially places that are warmer and sunnier.
Yeah.
What are some of the top international holiday travel spots this year?
What we're seeing is everyone is going to the Caribbean, and who can blame them? You've seen the weather in the Northeast. You want a little bit of sun. And interestingly, Germany has snuck in there. I'm really curious whether it's the Christmas markets, whether it's perhaps a sort of extended Oktoberfest. Maybe there are great flight deals. You'll see that actually Europe at the moment is very, very affordable because, again, for Europe, it's just November. But I would encourage you, there are 12,000 more hotel rooms in the Caribbean this year than there were in 2019 before the pandemic. And I think that's bringing people to the Caribbean because when there's more supply, the prices go down. So you've always got to follow the money.
Wow, what a shift from 2019. Mark, I also wanted to ask you before you go, let's look ahead to the end of the year holidays, whether people are heading out for Christmas, Hanukkah, or New Year's. What days are looking the best for travel this year?
So it's one of those pesky holiday seasons where the Christmas Day is right in the middle of the week. So remember, try to avoid the weekends either side because most people who are taking that week off are thinking, gosh, I'm going to make the most of it. So if you can manage it, travel on a weekday and you'll find you'll get a much, much more pleasant experience on the roads or on a plane.
All right. Some good advice. Mark Elwood, thanks so much for joining us on this holiday. You as well. Now to an update on Sean Diddy Combs this morning. He remains behind bars after being denied bail by a third judge. The judge overseeing his sex trafficking and racketeering case ruled yesterday that Combs must stay in the New York detention center where he's been since his arrest back in September. In the ruling, the presiding judge said no conditions will, quote, reasonably assure the safety of the community if Combs were to be granted release. Prosecutors say releasing him would be detrimental. They also accuse the music mogul of witness tampering while behind bars. Combs has denied any wrongdoing. All right, turning to the transition of power. Overnight, President-elect Trump and a high-stakes phone call with Mexico's president addressing tariffs, border security, and more. Meanwhile, the FBI is now investigating a series of threats targeting several high-profile members of the upcoming administration. NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us from West Palm Beach, Florida, with the latest on this. Kelly, good morning. What do we know about this?
Good morning, Stephen. We're tracking a number of different things here. So on the issue of the threats made against Trump world figures, no explosives were found. And that's why authorities refer to these as hoax threats. But it still set off a lot of concern for a number of Trump world figures and their families because local law enforcement had to respond to their homes from New York to Florida. And then separately, Mr. Trump is conducting some of his own negotiations and phone calls with world leaders.
New this morning, fallout over President-elect Trump's latest tariff warnings against Mexico. A tax he claims could be imposed to reduce the flow of migrants and drugs. Just hours after Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum responded with her own tariff threats, the leader spoke in a phone call described as excellent and wonderful. Writing on Truth Social, Mr. Trump went further, declaring she agreed to stop migration through Mexico and into the United States, effectively closing our southern border. Claiming President Sheinbaum assured him that migrant caravans were no longer reaching the U.S. However, she later responded on X saying Mexico's position is not to close borders. Meanwhile, this comes amid a new wave of threats made against the president-elect's team, raising alarm bells. Considered hoaxes so far, but disrupting the holiday week for Mr. Trump's cabinet picks and inner circle. The transition team described this as violent, un-American threats to their lives and those who live with them. These attacks range from bomb threats to swatting. Tom Homan, Mr. Trump's future border czar, says he is taking this seriously.
I'm not going to be intimidated by these people. They're not going to silence me.
Designated Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says a credible pipe bomb threat was made to his home, where his 7 children were still sleeping. And the Choice 4 EPA Director Lee Zeldin said a bomb threat included a pro-Palestinian message to his Long Island neighborhood.
A lot of law enforcement came out. We had some Secret Service for Lee. Bomb squad came out and they did the robotic search.
According to law enforcement, no explosives were found, and the threats were conveyed by email and social media. The FBI said it takes all potential threats seriously, and President Biden has been updated.
And a spokesperson for President Biden also said that he and his administration unequivocally condemn any threats of political violence. Investigators are going to try to find out who made these threats, which were sent via email and social media. So there are certainly cyber ways of trying to track down the perpetrators. And then separately, because there's always so much going on in the Trump orbit, there is also news of a special dinner last night. Not Thanksgiving. This was Mark Zuckerberg, the tech titan, was invited to join the president-elect for dinner at Mar-a-Lago. And Zuckerberg's company Meta says that he appreciated the invitation to meet with the president-elect and to talk with members of his future administration. And that, of course, is notable because they have had a lot of public back and forth, critical of each other. There was a point where Mr. Trump was knocked off Facebook and then later restored after January 6th because of all of that. There's been a lot of back and forth. So the fact that they met, and given the importance of how the president-elect is dealing with business executives and all of these issues, that is certainly a notable happening at Mar-a-Lago. Stephen?
To be a fly on that wall. All right, Kelly O'Donnell, thank you so much. Well, much more to come on this holiday edition of Morning News Now. Later this hour, steals and deals. That is right. First comes the turkey, then come those sales. We'll share some of the biggest Black Friday offers this year. But up first, it's an out-of-this-world Thanksgiving for those 2 astronauts whose days-long space mission is turned into a month-long stay.
It's just awesome, and we have a lot of fun up here, too. So, people are worried about us. Really don't worry about us.
Up next, hear how they're doing on the International Space Station and their message to family and friends for the holidays. We're back now with the latest out of the Middle East. After a tentative ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah went into effect yesterday in Lebanon, Israel is stepping up its attacks on Gaza this morning. At least 21 Palestinians were killed in a new wave of strikes across the Strip. That, according to local health officials. This video captured the moment an Israeli missile struck a building at a refugee camp in the northern part of Gaza. The violence comes as the UN warns again that Israel is not allowing enough aid to get into that area. And as NBC's Hala Garani found out, it's a humanitarian crisis that's expected to worsen as winter sets in.
They ran from the bombs only for the sea to come for them. The storms rippling through the region, blowing away tents, soaking what few belongings the displaced of Gaza have left. Here in Khan Yunis, tarps became makeshift homes on the shifting sands of the beach. But the elements all but destroyed them. Children here pick canned food from the sand, floating in trash-filled water. The sea will kill us, says this woman. They live 17 to a tent here. With winter coming, the winds are stronger. Plastic trash bags flapping in the wind. The air getting colder. Nature unforgiving, even toward the most vulnerable in its path. I have no clothes for her. They're all wet, says Mother Ahlam Jamal, holding her 5-month-old daughter. In a football field in Gaza City turned camp for the displaced, dark clouds hang over the tents. Rain is in the forecast, and the residents trying to insulate their tents, doing what they can to keep the water out with old rolled-up rugs. A woman who's lost her husband and son cleans a coffee pot with the sand, with no warm clothing or sanitation or clean water. They say they're on the verge of freezing. Temperatures here can dip into frost overnights. Death would be better than this life, she says, as the bombs continue to fall. Israel has damaged or destroyed 2/3 of the structures in Gaza, according to the UN. So there are fewer and fewer shelters across the Strip. That means that for many of the homeless in Gaza, as winter approaches, there will be no place left to hide. Back to you.
Halagarani, thanks so much. Well, let's head now more than 200 miles above the Earth, where the crew of the International Space Station is celebrating Thanksgiving today. And that includes those 2 astronauts whose short mission has turned into a month-long stay. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt spoke with astronauts Sunny Williams about her time in space so far.
Oh, yeah. It's really awesome. Our mission control, flight control teams gave us tomorrow off. So our plans are, as usual, get up and work out, do the turkey trot, and then watch a little Macy's Day Parade. And we have a bunch of food that we've packed away that is Thanksgiving-ish.
Thanksgiving will be day 176 of Sunny Williams' mission to the International Space Station. Williams and fellow American Butch Wilmore were supposed to spend just over a week there after completing the first crewed test flight of Boeing's Starliner capsule. But after problems with the spacecraft, NASA determined it wasn't safe enough to bring the astronauts home.
How are you and Butch holding up in general? Does it take a toll on your body being in space that long?
You can see, part of being in space is working out. We work out a couple times, 2 hours a day, aerobic and anaerobic exercise. You can see Butch right here and Nick right over here. Our bodies change a little bit while we're up here, and that's why we have to work out so much. Some people call it space buff. Some people call it, fluid shift in your body. I think we look pretty good.
I know, of course, you have heard some of the social media, some of the conversations worrying about your health and weight. Is there any message to those folks?
Hey, we're feeling good, working out, eating right. It's just awesome, and we have a lot of fun up here, too. So, people are worried about us. Really, don't worry about us.
The plan is now for Williams and Wilmore to return to Earth in a SpaceX Dragon in February.
And, of course, the capsule you came up on was sent back without a crew. Did a part of you wish you could be on it as it made its return to Earth?
You betcha. It's a pretty unique opportunity to land a spacecraft for the first time. And part of our testing was to see how all of that undocking, deorbit burn, entry, and landing would have been.
Do you still have confidence in the technology that brought you there? And would you get on a Starliner again, tomorrow if you were asked?
Tomorrow might be a little bit too early. We learned a lot of lessons from our flight, but the spacecraft is really a solid spacecraft. It has so many capabilities. So maybe not tomorrow because we have to incorporate some of the lessons learned, but as soon as we see that we're on the right path and we've made some of the fixes to some of the issues that we had, absolutely.
Commander, as you know well, astronauts sometimes can wait years for a slot to get back into space. Do you look at this in some ways as a bit of a bonus?
That's an interesting question. I do because I just love living up here. It's awesome, and we're doing some amazing cutting-edge science, and it's really great to be part of that.
Fascinating. Our thanks to Lester Holt for that report. Those stranded astronauts are expected to return back to Earth aboard the SpaceX Dragon sometime in February. And coming up, a warning from doctors. Respiratory illnesses on the rise nationwide. What you need to know to try to stay healthy this holiday season. Plus, turkey and all the fixins without the family friction? Yes, it apparently is possible even after a heated election season. We'll share some tips on how to handle differences with your loved ones during Thanksgiving dinner. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. As folks gather with their friends and family on this Thanksgiving Day, the CDC is warning Americans about a growing number of people with respiratory illnesses. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has more on what doctors are saying about these concerning cases.
As the winter approaches, it's a sound everyone braces for. This year, the CDC says 2 serious respiratory illnesses are on the rise. Whooping cough cases are up 5-fold compared to a year ago. Walking pneumonia up 450% since the spring.
My daughter actually got sick in September.
Dr. Anita McSwain's daughter recovered from walking pneumonia, but then her mom got sick.
I took a course of 2 antibiotics, actually, and steroids, and initially improved, but then got worse again.
And that was kind of, for you, the red flag that it was time to go to the hospital.
Right, exactly.
At Virginia's Inova Hospital, there has been a noticeable increase.
We're seeing more cases and more severe cases where folks are actually coming into the hospital. They're coming into our clinic with more wheezing, more shortness of breath.
As for whooping cough, multiple states have seen spikes, according to the CDC.
I'm just wondering why we had this whooping cough.
Patients start with normal cold-like symptoms and then often develop violent coughing, which can last for weeks and lead to hospitalization. Doctors say people should be vigilant when they develop a persistent cough.
Hand washing and staying home when you're sick are always important, but certainly this year it's something to really think about.
Familiar but still important advice to stay healthy this holiday season. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
Stephanie, thanks. Well, it's been 2 months now since Hurricane Helene ravaged the southeastern U.S., leaving more than 100 people dead and causing widespread damage. Since then, people in North Carolina have gone about the difficult work of trying to pick up the pieces. But on this Thanksgiving Day, they're getting a different kind of help, with a chef and his team coming together to cook a holiday feast for thousands still reeling from that storm. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park has their story.
This is the last one.
Here in eastern North Carolina, the small town of Seaboard is on a big mission for Thanksgiving.
I can't sleep because I'm just excited about what we're doing.
Spearheaded by native son and longtime cook David Burke, who felt a higher calling to help his fellow Carolinians still recovering from Helene.
We really are at about 5,600 meals that we're going to prepare to distribute out in the western part of the state.
The recipe called for love and grace.
This is what I can do for them. Then I'm going to cut an onion for them. You know, cry a little bit more for them.
And the committee.
Through social media and word of mouth,
I'm just glad I can help people out.
Operation Thanksgiving Blessings took off.
We have people sending us money from all over the country.
Strangers eager to help families still struggling this holiday season.
She was the absolute best teacher, mother, wife, sister, friend.
Kathy Brown's sister, Kim, was swept away in the floodwaters and never found. They're finding comfort and healing in the generosity of Seaboard.
I think if more people were like David and others, I think our world would be a better place.
What do you hope people take away from what you're doing?
There are not many days in the world that are like this. A lot of people never get the opportunity to serve the Lord. And what I hope is, because of what we're doing here today, it changes their heart. If it does that, I think we did what we were supposed to do.
Kathy Park, NBC News.
Just keep it moving.
Seaboard, North Carolina.
Love that. Well, some of you may be waking up this morning with a bit of a pit in your stomach from thinking about potential political friction with family today. Well, hopefully this next segment can help smooth things out, especially after that election season. Many American families are heading into the holiday more polarized than ever. And as you prepare for Thanksgiving dinner, you may just want to leave politics off the menu altogether. But our next guest says sometimes these conversations are just unavoidable, and it's how you navigate them that can really make the difference between a family feud and a meaningful exchange of ideas. So joining us now with that Thanksgiving survival guide is Mr. Manners himself, Thomas Farley, who is more valuable than ever on days like today. Thomas, thanks for being here. So let's dive right into this. So you've got an interesting approach altogether for handling politics at the dinner table. You essentially say that people should just get ahead of those arguments. How would that work?
Sure, Stephen. So happy Thanksgiving to you and all the viewers.
This is sad that so many people feel like they want to avoid Thanksgiving because of the arguments that happen as people lock horns. But for a host that's concerned about this, you've got people on diametric opposite sides of the equation. Today, put out before your guests arrive a little text realizing that we've got many people from different sides of the equation here. I'd like to request, as a favor to me as host, that we keep politics away from today's celebration. We focus on family. So this way, you as the host can get ahead of it, and your guests will hopefully respectfully agree to your terms as your guest. But that's not to say that politics should never be discussed at a gathering. And I think as long as it's done respectfully, can actually be a positive thing, especially if you have people who come from different sides of the equation.
An interesting approach. I'm thinking about my own family back in Texas, and I don't know if that text would work for all of them. So what do you do if someone decides to bring up politics anyway?
Yes. So if this, despite the host's best attempts, you feel like you're besieged by someone who's coming over to argue with you, maybe they're coming over to gloat, I think this can be done, again, as long as it's done respectfully. The idea is that there should be a discussion, not an argument. And you've got to realize also there may be people at this gathering who simply don't want to engage at all, but maybe you do. Maybe you feel like this is an opportunity to hear another viewpoint and to share some thoughts on your ideas. So the key, though, is you're going to discuss, not argue. So you're not going to initiate. You're not going to be coming looking for an argument. You're going to be prepared to listen and not be initiating something if clearly the other person does not want to discuss.
Interesting. So I'm curious, what is the polite thing I do, I guess, if you're a host and the conversation starts to get pretty heated and people are clearly getting uncomfortable? What should you do?
Yeah, so here a diversion is always good. So if you can quickly change the subject, so perhaps somebody talks about the issue of inflation, you maybe as the host say, speaking of inflation, did you see that Spider-Man balloon today as it was rising over the Macy's parade? What a beautiful sight that was. So you quickly change the subject to something lighter and something that we can all hopefully agree on and find some common ground. So the host can dive in. Another thing you could do as the host is give people a task that will take them away from the moment. Stephen, would you mind passing out these hors d'oeuvres for me? So you're in the middle of an argument. Now I've taken you out of the scene and you're focusing on something else.
Oh, I like that last one. Give them a task. The diversions, maybe a smoke detector if things get really desperate. You never know what can come in handy there. That's just a joke, by the way. Don't do that. I'm also curious, seeing as how you are Mr. Manners, I'm curious about this. This is really, for many people, one of the few formal dining events that they may go to in a year. What is your favorite part of the day, and what is the biggest faux pas that you think people might be doing?
Thank you for that, Stephen. And one just final thing on the arguments. If you find that you're in a discussion with someone who you disagree with, but you can have a conversation respectfully, establish a safe word. Maybe it's drumstick, maybe it's wishbone. So then when that safe word is spoken, you are going to separate and you're not going to continue the conversation any further. I think the biggest faux pas that people will make on Thanksgiving is forgetting that it's not about the politics. It's not about asking somebody when they're going to get married or whether they're having kids. It's about being with family and truly giving thanks. So say whether you're religious or not, some kind of a blessing or words of thanks before the meal. And don't forget to thank the host, because Thanksgiving is a mammoth meal to prepare and clean up as well.
That is an excellent point. I saw my sister was up at 3 a.m. making Instagram stories of making the tamales this year. So a busy time for everybody. Make sure to thank them. And we thank you, Thomas Farley, some very helpful tips for this holiday.
My pleasure. Thanks, Stephen.
Appreciate it. Well, coming up, click and save. Millions of online shoppers getting ready for a post-Thanksgiving tradition. We'll scroll through some of the biggest Black Friday deals. Plus, there's no foul play allowed when it comes to carving your turkey. So if you don't know how, you don't have to just wing it. We have an expert to show us how it's done. That's coming up on Morning News Now. Welcome back and happy Thanksgiving. A recent survey estimates about 184 million people plan to shop in stores and online. between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. That would surpass last year's record by about 1 million people. And the vast majority of those shoppers still plan on snagging a good deal on Black Friday. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung joins us now with what to expect for this beginning of the holiday shopping season. Brian, thanks for being here.
Happy Thanksgiving.
First of all, I'm curious, for people who may be finishing up their Thanksgiving meals, what stores can they maybe rush out to try to buy some cranberry sauce?
Well, Stephen, it used to be the case that you could go out and even buy your holiday gifts right after Thanksgiving, but not the case anymore. So a lot of those big box retailers will be closed for the day. So Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Costco, they will not be open today. However, what will be open today are those grocery stores like your Whole Foods, like your Kroger's. If you do need any last minute ingredients, oh snap, I forgot this one thing to finish off the turkey, you can run to those stores. CVS will be open as well, so you can go there to get any sort of last minute things. But as far as the retail, the big box stores, they'll be closed for Thanksgiving to give their associates, I'm sure, a much needed break.
Yeah, I remember over the past decade that shift. Everyone was opening up early for Black Friday.
Right, on Thanksgiving, not anymore.
That really, went back. So how early are these stores planning on opening for their Black Friday deal?
Yeah, so, you can't go to Best Buy, can't go to Target today, but they will be opening at 6 a.m. tomorrow. It's not just Best Buy and Target, but Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's will also be open at 6 a.m. Some stores, Stephen, will be even open earlier than that. So Kohl's, JCPenney's will be open at 5 a.m. for some of those doorbuster deals. Okay. So people can get out there pretty early, but a lot of Black Friday deals to be had. I was seeing things 30, 40% off even.
Oh.
So some deals to be had, but you do have to wait until tomorrow.
Yes, and be kind to those people who are working at those stores.
Good reminder, absolutely.
That's very early for so many people. Question about Cyber Monday. What type of items should shoppers maybe hold off for the Cyber Monday deals?
Yeah, well, look, when it comes to what the experts are telling us, they say clothing and electronics. Yes, you might see discounts already as of Black Friday. However, if you wait until Monday, you might be rewarded with an even better deal. And what's interesting about this, Stephen, is that, we talk about the Black Friday deals. Well, a lot of Black Friday sales started earlier in the week. In fact, earlier in the month, Walmart had deals in the earlier part of this month. So people have been getting discounts already, 10%, 11% in some cases. But again, with clothing and electronics, you can get even 30% off. That's according to Adobe Analytics, maybe if you wait until Cyber Monday. The caveat is it might not be in stock, right? The longer you wait, the higher the chances that it might be sold out. So there's a little bit of that game of chicken that you have to play.
A game of risk, a little bit of gambling going on. Okay, so when we take a step back and look at this, what advice do you have for people to try to get those best deals when they go full force out trying to shop this holiday week?
I mean, it is a sport, right? Not a contact sport like it used to be when it came to those doorbuster days. But look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of tools that you can use in this digital era to price match and make sure that you're actually getting the best deal. So yes, if you're at the mall and you're shopping, take a look at your phone, use apps like Camel, and also Honey. These are apps that can actually show you prices at comparable stores for the same item to see if you're actually getting the best deal. And also use cashback apps and even rewards cards to make sure that you're maximizing these big ticket purchase items, because if you're going to spend a few $100, you might as well get like 5% back if your card allows you to do so. So some tips there. And price matching. Some stores have price matching policies where if you show them online, hey, I found this thing for $20 cheaper, they'll honor that. So there are a lot of ways to get the best deal, but you do have to do your homework.
Yeah, a little homework can go a long way in these
Absolutely.
situations. All right, Brian Chung, thanks so much.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving. Well, speaking of the holiday shopping season, Black Friday continues to lose foot traffic year over year to online shoppers, but it's still the biggest day for in-store shopping. This year, retail analysts say more than 131 million people will be taking advantage of those sales tomorrow. Caitlin Mahar joins us now to give us an insight into this year's Black Friday sales. She's a staff writer for the New York Times Wirecutters Deals team. Caitlin, good morning to you. Thanks for being here. So like we said, several retailers started their Black Friday sales early this year. And so is tomorrow really the best day to shop? And what are the best deals people can take a look at, or which ones should they maybe skip?
Hi, Stephen. Happy Thanksgiving. So yes, Black Friday is typically the best day to shop for pretty much everything. Here at Wirecutter Deals, we are already seeing over 900 on our page, and it is not even 9 a.m. Some things that I would recommend people look into buying if you're in the market for a new TV, for small kitchen appliances. We see really deep discounts on those, a lot of electronics, and also really popular brands from from Apple to Dyson, and also cool clothing brands that your kids might be really into if you're looking for a gift that will really impress.
All right, very interesting. Well, Black Friday is sort of the start to this whole weekend. So how do these deals you're seeing now compare with what we're expecting for Cyber Monday?
Honestly, the deals will likely be the same. The biggest thing that we tend to see are if a deal sells out after Black Friday, unless it's a smaller business, often what they're doing is squirreling away a little bit of merchandise so that they can bring it back on Cyber Monday. So with that in mind, if you think that you've lost out on a Black Friday sale and, oh no, it's sold out, very often it will come back again on Monday.
Ooh, that is a good hack. I did not know that. I also wanted to ask you, this year we've seen plenty of examples of how AI can be scary when in the wrong hands. That means these scams kind of are getting more sophisticated. There's actually a study by security software firm McAfee showing 1 in 3 Americans have fallen for a scam during holiday shopping season. And as scams get increasingly harder to spot, what can shoppers do to try to avoid these?
Well, first of all, that's really unfortunate to hear, and I'd love to help if I can. I'd say the biggest thing is the most common scammer tactic is creating a false sense of urgency. So they want to just kind of reach through your computer and grab your credit card before you can even think. So what I would say you should do is make a plan, go in with a clear head, slow down, and really dig into the retailer, see if that seller is legitimate, see if that brand is actually good, and utilize price tracker tools like Brian had mentioned earlier, Keepa, Camel, excuse me. And of course, check Wirecutter, because that's what we do for a living, is we protect our readers from scams.
All right. Very helpful. Some great information this morning. Caitlin, thanks for taking some time, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. Well, if you've finally found that prize turkey, you may be thinking about how to prepare that most flavorful bird this Thanksgiving. There's brining, there's buttering, there's basting, and that's just about the cooking. But would you know the best way to carve your turkey? No need to wonder and worry, because joining us now is expert turkey farmer and Guinness World Record holder for the fastest turkey carving, Paul Kelly. Paul is also the managing director for Kelly Braun's Turkeys and is going to show us the ropes on carving a turkey. Paul, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you. So for those of us who don't know what a bronze turkey is, could you walk us through the difference between a bronze and, I guess, a regular turkey, and why your family decided to change the way you were raising and farming those?
Yeah, sure can. So, well, originally, every single turkey in the world was bronze, in a bronze turkey, and bronze is the feather color. And the white turkey came along in the 1950s, and it was just a mutation of the bronze feather gene. So the white turkey didn't have the little black feather stubs in the skin, so that's why it became popular. But as I say, every other colour, you've got Bourbon reds and Nebraskans and greys and slates. They're just a mutation of the bronze feather gene. So bronze in itself is just the old original breed. The reason we started our bronze turkey in the UK was because back in the early 80s, the supermarkets were taking over, the butchers was losing so much business, and we as a little family business were really struggling. So we basically, launched something new. We went back to pre-war, when actually turkeys then were all bronze and we were free ranging them. And then we pluck all our turkeys by hand, dry, and then we hang them as you would a pheasant. Turkey's a game bird and it should be hung. So we were of the mind that Christmas Day for us, we eat turkey Christmas Day, was very special, and people were willing to pay for something that was genuinely better. And that's just getting the old original bronze turkey and then making sure it's actually mature when we harvest it at Christmas. The modern white turkey now is being bred so quickly that typically they're 10 or 12 weeks of age when they're harvested. Our turkeys are 6 months, and flavour comes with maturity. The older the bird, the better the flavour. That's what we say.
Wow, I'm learning so much. That is fascinating. And we see you got your turkey here, so let's get to the meat of this segment. We'd love to see, especially from a Guinness World Record holder, how do we actually do this?
Okay, well, what we do is we break the bird down into what we call its primals. So we're going to take the bird apart before we actually start to carve it and serve it as portions. So First of all, you must have a sharp knife. You cannot carve a turkey really well without a sharp knife, and a sharp knife is a safe knife. So you get your knife, and the first thing we do is just cut that wingtip off, and then with the knife again, you just cut down through between the breast and the leg, and then you can peel the leg back and take that whole leg off. There, like that. Put that to one side. And then, with the knife, we're going to follow the line of the bone and go down the breast and carve the whole of the breast off the bone. It would be easy to start carving it here, but you just follow the line of the bone. When I did my world record, I did a 15-pound turkey into 15 equal servings, all over 3 ounces, with white meat and dark meat in 3 minutes, 41 seconds. So it's pretty quick. So there, I've taken the breast off, and that's that beautiful bit of wing. And then this is the shoulder meat. You carve that, which is a beautiful bit of meat. So you'd repeat that with the other side. But what we've got here is the leg and the breast. This is a top tip, actually. What I love to do, because our turkeys are so mature, they've got lots of subcutaneous fat. You can peel the skin off the breast like that, and you put that, lay that in a baking tray, and you can peel the skin off the leg like that, and you lay that in a baking tray, get all the skin off the bird, pop it back in the oven for 20 minutes at the same temperature, and then you get beautiful turkey crispy skin. So let's put that. Once you've got the breast there like that, you can then carve down through the breast, and you get lovely even slices of turkey meat. And as I say, if you do it this way, typically you'll get about 15 to 20% more servings out of your turkey. There we are. And then you do as much as you need, and then you pick your leg up and holding it. What I should say, you must let your turkey rest. Take the turkey out of the oven and let it rest for at least an hour before carving it, so you can handle it. And the bird isn't going to go cold. It takes about 2 or 3 hours for it to go cool. So let it stand so it's cool enough for you to handle the bird when you're carving it, rather than it being too hot. And if you're holding the leg like this, you can then carve lovely dark meat off the bone. And then...
That is fascinating. You've taught me so much. Paul taught me that I have had no idea what I have done in the turkeys in the past. And I see you've got a lot more to go. We're running out of time here a bit, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time out of your Thanksgiving to show us how to do that. Learned so much. Paul Kelly, appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Steve. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Well, coming up, balloons, bands, and big, colorful floats. We'll take you right outside our door for a pre-turkey tradition here in New York City, where the rain is not stopping the crowds for the Thanksgiving Day parade. Gobble, gobble. You're watching Morning News Now. And finally this hour, a Thanksgiving morning tradition underway right here in New York City. Thousands of people braving the rain for the 98th Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade through Manhattan, featuring some fun, festive floats, those massive balloons people are excited about, along with those performances. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now with more on this annual tradition, which we know, Jay, happens rain or shine.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Happy Thanksgiving, my friend. And you're right, it's raining, but it hasn't slowed things down a bit. Take a look. The parade is underway and rolling through the streets of Manhattan. About 2.5-mile parade route. SpongeBob getting ready to join the parade. Dora right behind him. 17 of these giant character balloons this year, including, for the first time ever, Minnie Mouse. So it's cool to see Minnie Mouse. Spider-Man is back after a 10-year break. I guess he's been out fighting crime, slinging webs, doing Spidey stuff, but he is back as well. 22 floats, 11 marching bands, as well as 700 clowns. And, Stephen, that doesn't count me and the crew, so it's really more than 700 clowns out here.
The main attraction, Jay Gray himself. How are the crowds, Jay? How are their spirits, and are there fewer people than maybe you expected due to the weather?
No, in fact, it looks like any other year. It is packed out here. We got up 2:30, 2:45 this morning. There were already families getting their spot along the parade route. And think about this, no umbrellas. You can't have an umbrella in the crowd, so a poncho or a raincoat. They don't care. It's an exciting tradition that so many people enjoy, and they are having a good time in the rain.
and I am happy for them. Jay, I also wanted to ask you about the performances. I always think about the floats and the balloons, but there's supposed to be some star-studded performances this year. What can you tell us?
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. And you've got everything from Dan and Shay to Chloe to T-Pain, The Temptations, Kylie Minogue. It's going to be a lot of fun with a big variation of those performing here. And before we sneak away, Stephen, a couple of really useless facts, but something you can share at the Thanksgiving dinner today. 200 pounds of confetti used in this year's parade, 300 pounds of glitter. And I'm embarrassed. I hate to brag on Thanksgiving. 150 pounds of that glitter from my personal collection. So you're welcome. Happy Thanksgiving.
You never know what you're going to get with Jay Gray, his own personal glitter collection. We love that. Have you spotted Santa Claus yet, Jay?
Santa Claus is at the end of the line. So no, I'm looking down the street. Let me look real quick. No Santa yet. It's led by Tom Turkey. Santa's at the end, and no Santa just yet. But we'll be waiting here, and I'll make sure to put in a good word for you. I know you've been on the naughty list the last couple of years, Stephen, but I'll make sure to put in a good word.
Thank you so much, Jay. I'm tired of getting cold. If you will put in a good word for me, I will certainly appreciate it. And give Santa some glitter too. Maybe that'll help win him over for me. I'll need that help. All right.
Oh.
Thanks so much, Jay. I can't wait to see that personal glitter collection. We appreciate your time today. And thank you at home so much for watching this hour of Morning News Now. Your news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.